Welcome back to another episode of Keoni Chats. So my guest today is Rolando Rado, and Rolando and I have a very long history together, as he is my brother's age, which is just 2 years older than me. And growing up, I was that younger sibling that always wanted to spend time with his older brother and his friends. And I even remember at one point growing up that all of my friends were his friends originally. So, I'm always thankful to my brother for not pushing me away when he wanted to just be with his friends, but yet extending a hand out when I knew he was going out and I wasn't really doing anything. So one of those friends that was growing into that whole brother-like figure was David Rodriguez, or it is still David Rodriguez, but David was a guest on the show a little bit ago, and after that episode, I knew that I wanted to bring Rolando on as well and talk with him, because I knew in high school that he went off into the military immediately. So there were already a few questions popped up there that I know is great to get his input on. I also I mentioned this in the interview that I never expected him to be open. I always thought of him as like a closed off, tough exterior kind of guy, and for him to, he's been working on lowering his guard and letting people in. So I'm very thankful also to him for. I know it's one thing to open up to people or open to your friends in a normal setting, a normal conversation setting, but to do that and then also with cameras and microphones, I know it wasn't easy. So thank you to Rolando for coming on to the show and telling your story. And I never know if me releasing these episodes does anything for the fans or anyone that's curious about Rolando's story and maybe finds a few things here or there that it matches with what you're going through, and then hearing about how he went through it and pushed on through. I never know. I never know if that really helps anyone, but I just want to. I know it helps my outlook on the show to just shoot it out there, and then whatever happens in terms of responses or in terms of if people actually relate to it. So, but you can let me know about that by leaving a review for the podcast show on either Apple or on Spotify and Google Podcasts. I'm not 100% sure if you can leave reviews there, but at least those two, Spotify and Apple Podcasts, those two for sure you can leave reviews. So yeah, leave a review and let me know what you think of the show, or let me know if you're just, I'm tired of his voice. I'll take all sorts of commentary, because who knows, maybe that negative comment could actually help me become a better podcast host. So check out the show on all podcast platforms under Keoni Chats, and then you can also follow the show on those platforms after you've searched for me. So follow there also, because episodes are released bi-weekly, so you got some time between each to kind of digest and also just marinate with what you hear about in these episodes. So you can do that, and then you can also follow the show on social media. That would be Instagram and Twitter. That would be KC Media 13. And then Facebook, it would be Conlu K Media. On YouTube, that's where all the video versions of these episodes can be found by going to youtube.com and then searching Keoni Chats. I put them in all the titles, so it should be able to pull it up that way. And if you are watching on YouTube, then you'll see on the lower right-hand corner of the screen a little tag for KeoniConlu.com. KeoniConlu.com. That's where all of my other creative outlets are stored. So along with the podcast, you got the audio and the video version. I also do a blog series, whether it is the DC animated review series or the mock drafts, NFL mock drafts, because at the time of this recording, Combine just went and gone. And so I'm almost done with the first draft, so mock draft 1.0. Keep a lookout for when that becomes available, and you would do that, again, by following on social media. So I also like to take photos, so that's where those can be found if you want to kind of peruse through what I've taken some photos of in the past. So nothing lately, but I'm trying to work with my friends that I know are very artistic with the camera and see if maybe I can learn something else. Maybe I can do something different than what I usually do. It's all about growth. It's all about trying uncomfortable things. So, yeah, thank you to Rolando again. So, however you are listening to this episode on whichever platform you prefer, or if you are watching on YouTube, I hope you enjoy my chat with Rolando Rado. Originally, when I wanted to bring you on, I was like, can you open up? Because I've never known you as someone that can share things about yourself. When I asked you to come onto the podcast show, how did you feel? And what were some of your thoughts going around, having this opportunity to actually get on a microphone and try not to cut a wrestling promo, but just come on and talk about yourself. Were you nervous at all?
Not really. When you hit me up to do the podcast, I was like, sure, why not? What the hell? I've got nothing else going on, and might as well do it. It's fun watching the other podcasts. Got to know Justin Jones a little bit better, even though I've known him for, since we were in like 3rd, 4th grade. Mm-hmm. So I've known him quite some time, but it was interesting to get to see a little bit of a different side of Justin. So I was like, sure, why not? Let's get this done.
Yeah, there was a trend for a while where I was like hitting up Sunset alumni from 2007, 2008. And my dad was like, hey, you should just talk to everyone from Sunset, only people from Sunset. And I was like, I don't like that idea, but I like that idea. I was having a hard time trying to accept his, advice, just because sometimes I can be pretty hard-headed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember you being somewhat hard-headed as well growing up, but now in your older ages, you're starting to
thanks.
You're starting to soften up. And so when did you think that, hey, I don't need to be such a aggressive person anymore? I can be a little more understanding, a little more like open, or just like open to hearing other people's thoughts, basically.
I would have to say probably like 5 years ago, just learning that being that tough, strong exterior doesn't really help make new friends and get to know people a little bit better on the deeper side and just kind of a surface level. So I figured it's time to start softening those edges. And let's see, 5 years ago, that puts us almost 7 years from when I first started dating Chloe. So it took her a while to get to see the soft side too. So I figured, let's start sanding those edges.
Yeah, because this is you two are engaged, so this is the first time we really start to see where I guess from my brother, myself, David Rodriguez, former guest, we all started to see a different side of you where you're I remember girlfriends from high school where
let's not bring those up. No, I'm just kidding.
We don't do names for previous relationships, but yeah. So I just remember that side. It was always a hard balancing act of trying to find time for yourself or your friends, and then time to be in a relationship with person X, person Y, whatever it is.
And sports.
And a
job too.
And which one?
I had a job too.
Oh, the job. Yeah, exactly. I thought you said a drop kick. I was like, what? Who are you drop kicking? But how was it trying to find that evening? Because even to this day, there are some times where we don't see you for long periods of times just because you have a job and then you're at home because you want to recharge.
Yeah, it's a hell of a balancing act. It's learning not to, as soon as I go from work, going straight home, because I know as soon as I go straight home, I'm just going to want to sit and relax. So it's a struggle. Mm-hmm. Getting to, after a 12-hour day at work, and being like, oh, man, I don't want to do anything. But I know if I go home 6 o'clock and put my butt on the couch and just veg out, which isn't the greatest. Start getting that dad bod, so.
Me too.
So I got to get out of that routine and just go straight from work and do something else. And I'm big with planning and scheduling my time, so that's probably a little bit different too. Now that I actually plan for things instead of just by the seat of my pants, last minute, hey, let's do this, and I'm like, all right, cool, let's go do it. And the next thing I know, I've put off like 4 other things that I needed to get done that were a priority, but I didn't prioritize those. So, yeah, just kind of learning how to prioritize my time and figuring out what's going to get me forward and move me forward and get me to where I need to be as an adult.
Where do you think you need to be at this point in your life right now?
Just learning to be okay with my dad bod and just kind of kicking it and just hanging out with friends. In the last 5-6 years, had some friends die just all of a sudden from brain aneurysms, suicide, and just random things. So it makes you really appreciate your time and just knowing that tomorrow is never promised.
True. Especially with your, coming out of high school, your time in the military, which we'll touch base on shortly. But what is the aspect of your life right now you feel like you're still? Actually rewind. I'm sorry, but your friend's passing away. How do you handle that? Because I remember when there were 2 people that passed away that I graduated with. One died in the military, and then the other one died of cancer. So the highway that is right next to our old elementary
Walker
school.
Road.
Was it?
Walker Road, right?
Walker Road.
Right
Road,
off at
yes.
217.
Yes. So that road's dedicated to him. And then it's still weird. I mean, I remember after I went to his ceremony, or his funeral ceremony. And then I just remember I had dreams about him a little bit after the funeral and seeing everyone. I had dreams with him, and like we didn't have a whole lot of interactions together. Like we played sports, but he was more of a baseball guy. He tried out football. I was more of a football guy. So how do you process dealing with the losses of those friends, with people you interacted with?
For me, I've just learned to waffle brain it, just kind of compartmentalize and just kind of cool. It's sad it happened. Put it in a box, put it on the shelf, move on. Because I'm not one to drag out the bereavement of somebody. Yeah, it's sad that it happens. Sometimes it catches me out of the blue and a little bit more emotion comes out, but don't want to seem like I'm cold-hearted, but it's just what nature of the beast. You're here one day, you're gone the next, so you kind of just got to learn to live with it. So it's just one of those things that over time you learn, and especially being in the military, it was something that you just learned to deal with. You just, you're going to war, something's going to happen. Person standing next to you, left or right, could be there when you get back, could not be. So it's just one of those, you just live with it.
Yeah. Do you think if you weren't in the military, you'd be more of a wreck if you had to deal with those friends passing?
Probably. Probably be a lot different of a scenario. But at the same time, too, I kind of think I've always been that way. Just growing up with a single mom. So, well, I know you'll want to get into that later, but
No, go for it. Go for it. No order here. It's just when it comes up, it comes up.
Yeah. So, just growing up with a single mom, it's just one of those things that I guess I learned to shut myself off and just kind of put up those walls to protect myself. So, in case stuff like that ever happens, it's just cool. They hit the wall. It's there. It happened. And then just kind of move on.
Okay.
So it's been a defense mechanism for quite some time. So I think it's been worked on to the point where I've mastered it. And I've mastered it too well. And like you said, people are starting to see my softer side a little bit more. So it's letting those defenses down, letting those walls down, and just kind of letting people in. And just learning to live with it. And if I get hurt in the process, it happens. But yeah, it's just learning how to deal with those movements or moments, and then just kind of say, okay, cool. Here in that time, in that moment, and then just say, it happened. I lived with it. Oh well.
Yeah. What were your mom's thoughts when you told her that you're going to the military? Because I do remember kind of hearing it through my brother that when you told her, it wasn't pretty.
Funny thing is, growing up, I wasn't the greatest in school, so I always got threatened with, if you don't get your grades up, you don't get your act together, I'm going to send you to military school.
Oh.
So it was always a threat in the back of my mind that I was going to go into military school.
Uh-huh.
So I laughed a little bit when she reacted the way she did when I told her I wanted to join the military and that I needed her to sign basically my life away, because I was 17 at the time when I joined. So I wasn't legal yet to sign for myself. So my mom had to sign saying it was okay for me to join.
Yeah.
So I kind of laughed at her because for years on years, starting like third grade when I moved up to Oregon, I didn't really care.
Mm-hmm.
So she always threatened me, if you don't get your grades up by next year or by the end of this school year, next year you won't be there. You'll be at military school. It's like, all right, cool. To get my grades up, and the same song and dance every single year. So I think that helped kind of plant those seeds of wanting to go into the military. And then in either third or fourth grade, I had a lunch buddy. So they had this lunch buddy program where somebody in uniform, military, police, fire, didn't matter, would come and eat lunch with you and kind of hang out for your lunchtime. And they'd go to recess, and you basically had an older male figure present that was a good role model. And I happened to end up with a Army sergeant who would come out every Thursday. I think it was either Thursday or Friday, and we'd sit down, eat lunch, and he'd just kind of be like an older brother kind of dad figure. So that, I think, also helped plant those seeds of joining the military. So I think between that, my mom threatening me to go to military school kind of actually pushed me in the direction, and just actually going through scouts too, because for me, I love structure. I love knowing what I need to do, when I need to do it, and how long I have to do it. Not having that structure, I kind of tend to go in every which way direction, so it kind of makes it a little bit harder. So I've always been one for a structured lifestyle. So
Yeah,
I think it was just the right step to do.
Because when I was, I guess was it 3 years apart? 2 years apart? 3 years apart. 3 years apart. So when you were kind of working way up the ranks in Boy Scouts, I joined, and then I just remember, there was you're getting up there in the ranking for Boy Scouts, and then I'm just kind of watching as I'm still working my way up, and then I just remember seeing you jump into the leadership role at Boy Scouts a few times here or there, and it just fit you very well to just help people, direct them, and get them going so they can, progress into the ultimate goal is always the Eagle Scout. So.
Yeah.
This guy never learn how to swim, so
A
second
few
class
drowning
and bust.
almost incidences with you sitting on my shoulders, but we won't talk about that.
Yeah. The methods of teaching your kids how to swim are drastically changed. Hopefully.
Yeah, not just push them into the deep end and say, hopefully you can swim.
Yeah. Because the next thing you know, I'm like face down in the water. But yeah. So when you got your first couple days in the training camps or just military boot camp?
Yeah.
Boot camp. What was one of your startling revelations when you finally got in there and then you were getting to the swing of it? Was there anything you kind of heard about? Because military life, it's whether it's in TV or movies, it's very geared towards that hardship. They're very much I'm gonna scream in your face, and which I'm sure that happens.
Yeah,
it's gonna happen. but it's like the sergeants are brutal. They're just like unforgiving. Is there anything that you carried with you from citizenship to military, then was either like enforced or broken down?
So in that aspect, day one, stepping on those yellow footprints as soon as you get off the bus, is just kind of the holy crap, what the hell did I just get myself into moment. Because as soon as you get off the plane in San Diego, you sit at the airport in the USO, and you land in San Diego at like 6 or 7 o'clock at night. And then you're there for like at least 3-4 hours, just kind of BSing, meeting the other people that are around you. And the next thing you know, you have a drill instructor that's like, hey, people that are here for this day, follow me. And he's nice because they have to be at front to get you not to be scared. And so you walk out to the bus. And as soon as you step on that bus, that guy flips a switch. And he goes from, hey, everybody, I'm so-and-so, to get on my bus. Get on my bus.
You can curse, by the way, on this.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Put your head down. Shut the fuck up. Get on my bus. And you're like, oh my God, what happened to this guy? And now, basically, you put your head down and you're driving around at like 11:30 at night, not knowing where you're going from the airport. But the funny thing is, when you're flying into the San Diego airport, to the right of it is Marine Corps Base San Diego. So basically, they take you on the base and drive around in circles for like a half hour to make you think that it's some like far away place from the airport. And then you get there and they turn on all the lights. And then you have like the real drill instructor telling you, get up, get up, get up, get off my bus, get off my bus, get off my bus. And you're like, all right, cool. We're getting in the groove. We're getting in the groove. He's like, when you get off of my bus, feet on the yellow feet print. And you're like, all right, cool. You're standing there, and the next thing you know, they're like, all right, you get one phone call. You're like, oh, crap, this is prison. So they're like, do not read anything or do not say anything else. You will read the script. If you don't get an answer, leave a voicemail or call the next person in line. So you were supposed to have like 3 numbers memorized. I called home. Called my mom at like 12:30. Hey, Mom. Made it to Marine Corps Base San Diego. I'm safe. Do not send letters. Do not do this. Do not whatever the script said. And then hung up on her. Didn't even give her a chance to talk because that's basically how it is. You get 30 seconds.
Wow.
So it's literally a prison phone call.
Jeez.
And next thing you know, you're moving and grooving. Yeah. Just it hits you, and then you're there.
And then you worked before you worked your way up, kind of up the ranks here or there. You did do a couple tours up in Iraq and Yuma.
Yeah. So Yuma was just a training camp.
Oh, it was a training camp. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yuma's in Arizona.
Oh, Yuma, Arizona. See, look at that. You're helping the person that should know some things about your life learn more. So Iraq.
Yeah.
Now, I do remember hearing about when we went to war with Iraq. And then immediately thinking of you, thinking like, is he going? Is he going? And then also, my age, there were not just the one person that passed away, but there was also Jake Island, who is also former guest. So talk to him about his time there too. But for you, when you got to Iraq, or just what was that process like, knowing that you're leaving the United States, you're going to go to, I guess at that time it was hostile territory. What was your, how was your processing when it came to leading up to that?
Leading up to it. So when I got to my unit, I was with my unit at least 3 or 4 months. So I was still super fresh. And then they got us in a formation one morning, like every morning formation, just kind of give us a briefing of what was planned for the day. And they're like, hey, deployment's coming up. We've got the deployment list. You've got 6 months. I think it was like 6 months. It was, or less. Get your shit together. Start putting stuff in storage. Start sending stuff back. take vacation. That way you can get stuff sorted. And then they started reading through the list. And then the next thing I know, they're like, Lance Corporal Rado. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's me.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, you're going. I was like, oh, shit.
That's it.
I'm going.
Two
All
words.
Right. And I was stoked. That's what I joined the military for.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to be one of those pencil pushers. I initially, when I enlisted, I was trying to go infantry.
Mm.
But my mom was like, I don't want you facing combat. I don't want you getting shot at. I don't want you shooting people. So that got nixed. So when the recruiter, we're going back in time here. So when the recruiter was like, okay, next time you have your mom come in, we'll give her this job option. So I was like, he's like, you'll be an LAV mechanic. I was like, what the fuck is an LAV mechanic? I've never heard of an LAV. I don't know what this is.
Was it LED or
LAV?
LAV? Okay.
Light armored vehicle. So I was like, I have no idea. So I Googled a picture and showed me it was a tank with 8 wheels.
Oh.
He's like, these are infantry guys that go into combat, but they sit in these tanks. I was like, all right, cool, let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
So when my mom showed up to hear the next job option, he was like, we were thinking LAV mechanic. He'll be in the green zone, which is basically a safe zone. And he'll be in the back with the gear. You won't have to worry about him. He won't ever see combat. But I already knew that wasn't true.
Mm-hmm.
If I joined a infantry unit, those guys are the front line. Those vehicles are blowing down doors, blowing down buildings. So I was like, let's do it. So she's like, okay, that's fine. It's safe. He won't be anywhere near war, but he'll still be doing his part.
Mm-hmm.
So she signed the paperwork. So when I was in boot camp and I heard what unit I was going to, they're like, 1st Radio Battalion. I was like, the hell?
Mm-hmm.
I was expecting 1st LAR, 2nd LAR, 3rd LAR. And LAR is light armored reconnaissance because these are reconnaissance vehicles. So I was like, all right, cool. I'm gonna be up front, kicking down doors, taking names, and then like 1st Radio Battalion. I was like, what the hell? So I was like, all right, cool. 1st Radio Battalion, yay.
Mm-hmm.
Went to my MOS school and learned the different variety of vehicles. There's 7 vehicles under the LAV umbrella, basically. And they're like, any of you guys go into any kind of radio battalion? I was like, yeah, that's me. They're like, bitch. I was like, fuck. What do you mean? So they showed me a picture because they didn't really have any to show me, because those are rare and few and in between. And they're like, you see this vehicle right here? I was like, yeah. They're like, you see any guns? I was like, no. They're like, there's one gun. It's a 240 Bravo, so it's a machine gun that the vehicle commander gets.
Mm.
And then other than that, you're sitting target with a 50-foot antenna straight up in the air collecting intel.
Mm.
So I was like, are you fucking kidding me? I'm working on these shitty vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
There's no guns. There's no protection. No, yep, that's your future. I was like, no, I didn't join the military to sit behind with the gear. So fast forward back to getting ready for deployment. They're like, all right, cool. You're getting ready to deploy. I was like, all right, what can I do not to stay in the back with the gear?
Mm.
I was like, radio battalion. Yes, I love the battalion. That was cool. It was all SIGINT guys, so all intel, bunch of bookworms. I was like, what can I do? I'm in a combat MOS. I am the only combat MOS in my unit, and I'm stuck with a bunch of pencil pushers that sit in these buildings that are top secret clearance only to get into. Like, what the hell can I do to get into the war? So they're like, all right, we need vehicle drivers, we need combat medics, we need gunners. I was like, every time they said they needed something, I was raising my hand. I was like, I am going to better my chance of getting out of the green zone and go into war. Mm-hmm. So, ended up learning how to drive Humvees, 7 tons. Then I went to machine gunner school, so then I could sit up with a machine gun for the LAVs and 7 tons in the Humvees, and then ended up going through the medic course. So every time we went outside the wire in Iraq, I had the option of either driving a vehicle or sitting up in the gun.
Keoni Chats is proudly sponsored by Adelsheim Vineyards. Adelsheim is a winery based out of the Pacific Northwest since 1971. Founders David and Ginny Adelsheim opened up the winery with the goal to create world-class wine out of the Chehalem Mountains. Adelsheim works with companies like Growing Gardens, One Barrel, the Portland Trailblazers, and now the Keoni Chats podcast show. This is beyond exciting just to have, because the Oregon, Washington area, it's known for being wine country. And so for one of its pillars to give the fans of the Keoni Chats podcast show this way to try their products at a little bit cheaper price, I can't say thank you enough to Adelsheim for giving us that, for believing in us. So if you would go to adelsheim.com, ADELSHEIM.com, and then go to the shop section, either look at some wines or look at some merchandise, but create a cart, throw in some Pinot Noir, throw in some Chardonnay, throw in some Cabernet, why not? And then if you want to throw in like a apron, that's also good too. So before you check out, use the discount code Grand Cru. That's GRANDCRU. It's a popular wine term, so look it up if you want to figure out what the meaning of it is. So once you put in that discount code, that will give you 20% off your total purchase. That is, again, wow. Just wow. Then Adelsheim and the Portland Trailblazers, just that kind of partnership. As a sports fanatic, just to see this different vision of the Portland Trailblazers on a wine bottle, I thought was super awesome. And I just can't say thank you enough to Adelsheim for believing in us. So go to adelsheim.com, ADELSHEIM.com. Use the discount code Grand Cru, GRANDCRU, for 20% off your total purchase. You have to be 21 years and over to purchase any wine from Adelsheim, but if you want to purchase any of their apparel or any of their other merchandise, then by all means, please use the code. So you must, again, be 21 years and over to purchase any alcohol, and everyone, please enjoy responsibly.
So every time we went out the wire, I was up in the gun. I was like, yes, I'm outside the wire. I'm in the gun. I was like, if shit goes down,
You're moving
I'm
on
the first line of defense.
Yeah. Okay, so then you're starting to make your movement. You're starting to take on the ladder a little bit. Now, when you finally saw some action, I mean, okay, so Call of Duty, just thinking like immediately, I was just like, okay, I've played Call of Duty, and I remember there's either like regular like shoot 'em up arcade style, or you can do like zombies. I remember when I was playing zombies with my brother, I was like, oh, and that pairing that with watching like Walking Dead, I was like, okay, I kind of want to try shooting this gun, maybe see how that goes. And then I never did it, but then playing the regular Call of Duty, like I could see, because I remember hearing somewhere that like the military uses those kind of video games to still do kind of some recruiting of sorts. Did any video game run through your head as you were about to see some action?
No,
like, I'm gonna be like Grand Theft Auto. No.
No, so for me, unlike Jake, I know Jake actually saw combat and he got shot at and shot back. For me, it was more just kind of doing convoys and patrolling the area. So I never got shot at and never got to shoot the gun at anybody. The closest I got to was, I think it was my third or fourth time outside the wire. We came up to a checkpoint. All the checkpoints out there are all run by Iraqi police. Iraqi police were not to be trusted, just due to the fact that they could be bought off.
True. Yeah.
So there was Iraqi police out there, and we got to a checkpoint, and there was a big hill. So the 7 tons are pretty tall vehicles. You're up in the gun, and then sitting there on the hill is an Iraqi police officer. So he was on my right. There was nothing on my left. So I turned the gun kind of at a 45 to show I knew that he was there. and that he knew that I was there. So just kind of watching him, and out of the corner of my eye, I see him lift his rifle up. So he had an AK, so I was like, oh, really? So with the AK, he's pointing it at me, and I was like, oh, man. I was like, I do not want to play this game. So let go of the latch so I could actually swivel the machine gun fully, and I turn it, and I grab the rack to like rack around into the chamber, because outside the wire you're running condition 2, which was loaded, magazine in, but no round in the chamber. So grab the racking handle, get ready to pull it back to put a round in the chamber, and he puts his rifle down because he knows I have a machine gun that's belt fed, so I have about 100 rounds. He's got maybe 25, 30 in his. So he puts his down, I put my rifle or the machine gun back up in the air, and I turn and I face forward again. Closest thing to getting close to being shot at, but not even close. Enough to scare a little bit of poop out. Because you're like, okay, either...
Is this the end?
Yeah, because you're standing up there, and all you have is a piece of ballistic glass that covers half of your chest. You have your sappy plates or your vest, and then your helmet. So you're like, I have a piece of ballistic glass, my vest, and a helmet. I'm like, if he shoots anywhere above the ballistic glass and below or above the vest, I'm royally fucked. So he can move, I can't. I'm stationary. The vehicle stopped. All I have is this to swivel. So that was enough to be like, okay, well, if it comes down to it, it's either he goes home or I go home. I was like, this bastard, he's from a third world country. I have more to live for, so fuck him. If it goes down, I'm pulling the trigger.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the thought process of, and you go through that process in such a quick thought process too. It's like in less than 5 seconds, you've already chosen to take somebody's life if it came down to it. So it's that mentality of I go home or I don't go home. And a lot of people are like, oh my God, you went to war. Can't believe you would go through that. But and they're like, I can't believe you were willing to kill somebody. I'm like, that's kind of why you go into the military. If you were going out there to hand out flowers, then war would be completely different. So it was one of those things that's like, okay, yeah, I know I'm making the sacrifice, but I'm not sacrificing.
Yeah. It's like, I think if you would have had I think what's great about when this episode comes out, it does like shine a light to like some of the mentalities that need to be required if someone wants to make that commitment. Because yeah, it is either you're seeing tomorrow or you're not seeing tomorrow.
Yeah.
What would you want to do? If you don't want to see tomorrow,
don't even join.
Don't even join. If you want to see tomorrow, then you got to have that, they call it the dog mentality. Or I guess on NFL Network they call it that. But yeah, that's, how did does anything from your time in Iraq, I mean, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
Has anything kept with you today? Or are you kind of, the page is kind of turned and books now it's closed?
That one moment, an instant, stayed with me for quite some time. After I got home from Iraq, I figured, hey, I made it back. I'm good. Didn't think anything of it. Got ready. I was stateside maybe 8 months to a year.
You're still in the San Diego, California area, I believe.
Before I got ready, and then they shipped me off again, so I got a second deployment in. But that one was a little bit different. Went with the Navy, went overseas, and just kind of, it was a booze cruise. Every time we hit a port, if you're old enough in that country to drink, you just drank and you just partied, and the Navy did their thing. So it was more of a cruise ship type deal. Okay. So that second deployment was a lot easier. But then over the time after being home, after getting out, and actually slowing down and actually taking the time to enjoy life, started realizing being in crowds, my hands would get sweaty. I'd get like antsy, and I was always watching. And I think that moment of having that rifle pointed at me and knowing that anytime we went outside the wire and being on those vehicles, your head was always on a swivel. So then I was like, man, that's not like me. I'm not one, because growing up with your brother, we're going to rock concerts.
Yeah.
So I was like, what the hell is going on? So eventually I ended up going to the VA, and I was like, hey, I need to see a psychologist. I just want to make sure I'm okay. Because something's a little off and I don't think it's right.
Sure.
So I sat down with the psychologist, and he was like, well, tell me about what's going on. And so I was like, all right, cool. So I told him about that scenario and kind of actually being stateside, and now that I'm going out in crowds and just getting to the point where I'm having like small panic attacks. And he's like, well, you have classic case of PTSD. I was like, what the hell? I was like, I didn't even see action. Like, I didn't get shot at. I didn't shoot anybody. I was like, how the hell did I come home with PTSD? And he's like, it happens. It was something traumatic. It stayed with you. It's stuck in your brain. It's not something you think about, but it's still in the back of your mind. He's like, so you have classic cases of PTSD. I was like, great.
When he says classic, that kind of makes me think that, when people say, like, oh, you have common knowledge, it's common knowledge to take a right when you need to take a right, or something like that. But it's not really common though. So other than sweaty hands and then always head on a swivel, what else were some of those symptoms of, quote unquote, common PTSD or classic PTSD or whatever?
Yeah. So, you see it a lot in like the old, like Vietnam era vets, where the guys that got shot at and did all sorts of stuff, or just being in that area, because you don't actually have to see combat to get PTSD. It's just being in an area of war heightens your senses, and then your senses are always on like a heightened alert, and you don't ever learn how to get off of that.
Okay.
So being in that state of mind always was getting to be detrimental.
Yeah.
And just it started to show its face a little bit, because for the longest time never in the forefront of my mind, never really thought about it. So it was just kind of cool. It's there. Came home. I was like, cool. Came home with all my limbs. Came back 100% in the mind. I'm good. And I just kept telling myself that. And eventually one day I was like, something's off. And it's different for every single person. Some people see it right away when they get back. Some people don't. Some people it takes years to manifest. For me, it took almost 10 years to manifest. Still had the nightmares at night. Still waking up in like a panic, not knowing where I was at. And just, I thought it was normal. I've always had nightmares growing up, so I was like, whatever, it's not out of the norm. But the frequency of the nightmares that were happening, the more violent they were becoming, and the more I was moving in my sleep. Because at the time after I got out, I moved back home. Because it was just easier to do that. My mom's like, I could hear you screaming at night. So I was like, oh, well, it's just a nightmare. And she's like, okay, you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. Didn't think of anything of it. I was like, there's nothing, whatever. And next night, you're screaming. You kept me up all night. Oh, must have had another nightmare.
It's a defense mechanism also you mentioned earlier of you just kind of shrugging things off.
Yeah.
Just compartmentalize.
Yeah, so it's like, oh, another nightmare. Oh, whatever. Because for the most part, I don't remember nightmares or don't remember dreams.
Yeah.
Unless like you wake up and you're like, holy crap, that was such a vivid dream. I was like there.
Yeah.
But for those, I was like, I don't even know what I was having nightmares about. So that happened for at least a year or two. And then eventually they went away. And then they just started showing up again. And that's when I was like, okay, something's going on. I need to at least figure out is this normal?
Yeah, and because I'm learning this too with that trauma doesn't have to be a drastic thing. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I survived the car crash. Trauma can be like, oh, I almost I guess not like it's different variations where like the most minor thing could be like, oh, I accidentally sent the wrong report to the wrong client. Now like I'm more suspicious. I'm more like aware of like what I'm doing wrong or if I'm doing something wrong. So I just remember when because there's no way I can really compare with what you experienced and say like, oh yeah, my PTSD is just the same level. It's like, no, it's just like I had a shitty relationship, 2 shitty relationships. I'm much better now, but I'm still like learning from my mistakes. I'm still trying to improve myself and trying to make sure that the next one or the current one I'm currently in, it's like the best relationship for me.
Yeah.
So for you being an engaged man, how was it? I guess just early on with your fiance Chloe, which you mentioned earlier, so that's okay to say her name now. What was it like trying to get her to understand what you have going on with PTSD and all the military? Because I can imagine that can be kind of hard to just hash up and try and put into words.
Yeah. So when we first started dating, our worlds are night and day. I am a warmonger. I love that side of life. I love being competitive. I love just being active. And then her side of life is pacifist, turning the other cheek. She grew up Quaker, went to a Quaker college. So it was night and day. So getting her to understand my point of view and not butting heads to the point where it created friction to the point where like, okay, we're butting heads too much. Let's just split and go our own ways. Mm-hmm. It was meeting halfway and saying, hey, here's the little snippet of my life. This is what I went. This is what I saw. Take it or leave it. And then bring something up months down the road and be like, hey, here's a little snippet of this. And just slowly introducing the military lifestyle that I went through, what I saw, what I did. Okay. Instead of, hey, this is me, military, all at once, blah. And then it was one of those where it would have been just detrimental to both of us because it would have been like too much for her. Yeah. And I would have been like, whatever, you don't understand, I'm out.
Mm-hmm. Because this was not your first relationship out of active service.
No.
You've had relationships leading up to this one.
Yeah.
So it must have been like trial and error to some degree.
Not really. On some, I didn't even bring it up. Some they're like, "Oh, what'd you do?" I was like, "I was in the military," and that was it. Like that's all I would say.
Okay.
And I think it was the comfort level too of basically. I hate to say it, on some of those were kind of like one night stand type of deals, but they weren't because they did last more than a day. Yeah. But it was one of those where
flings.
Yeah, where you're like, all right, cool. It's just getting to be a little lonely. It'd be fun to have somebody for a few days, and then a few days turn into like months, and then you're like, all right, well, this is kind of awkward because this is not going anywhere. So,
so I left my toaster on. I gotta
one of those kind of situations. Yeah. So on those, I didn't really divulge a lot of information. I didn't really want to open up because there was no point.
Yeah, makes sense.
So I think it was just getting to that comfort level with Chloe and saying, okay, there's something more going on here than just kind of a fling, and just kind of slowly letting her in and letting her see that side of me. And like you said, I've softened up since when we first, after I first got back. Because I know you've seen the difference between night and day when I first got back from the military and being home to where I'm at now. So
you also not just softened up, you got some color in the terms of you tattoos. I remember you. Well, this was like the first one you got was during, I think your senior year of high school. It was like on your chest. It was like,
it was actually, my first one was actually with an ex. You were still in high school.
Yeah.
I had just turned 18. I had gone to boot camp, came back from boot camp, and I was home on leave.
Mm-hmm.
And I was still dating the girl, like a high school sweetheart.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'm going to get a tattoo. I want a tattoo. So she came to the house because I still didn't have my license, embarrassingly enough.
Yeah.
18, no license, and in the military. So I ended up having to get my license while I was in. But she came and picked me up, and I was like, hey, let's go get a tattoo. She's like, I'm not getting a tattoo, but if you want to, you can go. I'll go with you, and I'll be your support system. I was like, all right, fuck it. Let's do it. So as we were leaving, I was like, hey, Mom, I'm getting a tattoo. She's like, haha, okay, don't let it be stupid. Because I said it in a joking manner, so she thought.
You were joking.
Okay. Yeah, so she's like, okay, whatever. I'll just tell him something jokingly. So I went, got my first tattoo, got it on my right shoulder, I think it's. I don't ever see it's on my back, so I think it's on my right shoulder.
I think I remember this one, actually. And then the skull was the second one, right?
Yeah, on my chest. Yeah, that was the second one. So got that, came home, and I was like, Mom, I got a tattoo. And she's like, oh, that's funny. And I was like, no, I really got a tattoo. And she's like, okay, stop joking. I was like, no, lady, I got a tattoo. And her face just went pale, ghostly white. I took off my shirt. I had a piece of saran wrap on my back that was taped with medical tape, just collecting blood because I was bleeding so much because the tattoo was so big. And she's like, oh my God, you got a tattoo. I was like, I told you I was getting a tattoo as I was walking out the door. And you said, okay, don't let it be stupid. So I was like, I got a tattoo.
Well, okay, remind me again. Do you remember what it is?
So it is, it was the Marine, I got a Marine Corps tattoo.
Okay.
Typical Marine.
Yeah.
But I got it right after I got out of boot camp. I should have at least waited until I got to my unit, but I didn't. So I never heard the end of it when I went to MOS school, but whatever. Screw it. So I have a Marine Corps tattoo. It's a dog skull with a Kevlar with devil horns popping through the Kevlar.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I remember that now.
And on either side of the skull, it says US MC, and then it says Teufelshunden, which is Devil Dog, which was a name that the Marine Corps got, which is Devil Dog from World War II, because the way that they fought during that time. So my mom was like, I can't believe you did it. Typical mom reaction. She was like, oh my God, you got a tattoo. And then the more she looked at it, she was like, oh my God, you got a tattoo. And then before I knew it, she was like, oh, that's really cool. You got a tattoo. I was like, well, that kind of went over a little bit better than I expected.
So this was just in the span of like a couple days where she's like, the more she looked at it, or was it like a couple hours where she's like,
it was like an hour.
It was oh God. Yeah. She came around quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was like, wow. Okay. I was like, does that open the door for more tattoos? I was like, whatever. I'll just won't tell her about it, and then I'll come home, and then if she sees it, oh well. So that was kind of the first tattoo that kind of opened the door for many more to come.
So if you want to zoom in from the Rolando's camera feed, he does have a diamond on his ring finger.
Yeah, my
tattooed.
right hand.
So there's that one, and then I believe, to my memory, he has like, was it a gummy bear?
Yeah, I have a gummy bear on my wrist.
Yeah.
That one, the story on that is, buddy from the military. I always ate gummy bears, and he's like, "Dude, you're such a fruit." I'm like, "What? They're good. They're gummy. They're chewy. They're delicious."
Yeah.
And then one day I was bored, so I was like ripping the heads off of all my gummy bears and just transplanting them on like different gummy bears. So I had 2 different colors. I was like, 2 flavors. Sweet, let's do it. And he's like, dude, you eat your gummy bears like that? I was like, yes. He's like, that's how I eat them too.
Was it bond ship for life?
Yeah. So it was one of those weird moments where like you've connected on a deeper level, but it's like over gummy bears. And everybody already knew I was this butt buddies because we were always doing stuff together. We were always hanging out. He got a motorcycle like 6 months or something like that down the road. I got a motorcycle. So we were always riding together because you're in SoCal.
Mm-hmm.
It's 70 degrees. It never rains. So you're on a motorcycle. If you're on a motorcycle, you're on it, you're riding, you're doing it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more fun going with somebody rather than riding by yourself. So
True.
we would always go. And I think it was the year that he was getting out, he went and got like a big tattoo across his forearm or something like that. And I was like, I have two. I was like, he's getting tattooed, and just hearing the sound of the needle, you're like, shit, I kind of want a tattoo.
Okay. So that not just the artwork, it's just like all the other little essence of the tattoo world that you're just like,
yeah,
fun.
you walk into a tattoo shop, you smell that simple green that everybody uses, and it's like, yeah, I remember my first tattoo. Let's do it. Let's get another one.
Mm-hmm.
And you hear the needle vibrating. You're like, all right. Yeah, there's a little bit of pain associated with it, but you're like, whatever. Let's do it. So we were getting tattooed, or he was getting tattooed, and I told the tattoo artist that was doing his work, I was like, hey, bro. I was like, do you want to tattoo me? I was like, I'm willing to get a tattoo after you're done with him.
Yeah.
He goes, well, what do you want? I was like, I just want something small, something simple.
Mm-hmm.
I know you've been tattooing him for at least 3 hours. I know you don't want to do another big piece. So my buddy's like, dude, let's just get gummy bears. I was like, that is probably the gayest thing you've ever said to me, but let's do it. So he's like, all right, so the tattoo artist is like, you guys are weird, but whatever, I'll do it.
You're paying me, so it's like, sure.
Yeah.
All right, don't twist my arm.
Yeah, so he's like, what do you guys want? And I was like, well, we both eat gummy bears with 2 different colors. So I was like, all right, you get the bottom orange and the head green, and then I'll do the opposite. But see, this is how much I don't even remember what my tattoo looks like, that I have to look at it. Okay, so his was the opposite. His was green on the bottom, orange on the top. And the tattoo artist was like, that's fine. I'll finish his tattoo. I'll pull out another needle, pour some color, and I'll tattoo him and do that really quick. And then we'll do yours. And my buddy's like, maybe you should get it first. I was like, there's no fucking way in hell I'm getting mine first. You get it first, and if it looks stupid, cool, you got it and I don't.
I knew that was a plan.
So he's like, no, I'm not doing it. I was like, bro, I'll pay for yours, and if you don't like, and if it looks stupid, whatever, you have it, I paid for it.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, fine, whatever. So he got his, and then I was like, all right, well, he did it. I was like, I might as well just get it done.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the tattoo artist free-handed the gummy bear on my wrist, and it looked like a fat, just lazy bear. I got so many comments on it when people saw it. They're like, is that a stamp? What nightclub did you go to? And then my tattoo artist saw it, and he goes, what is wrong with that gummy bear? It was just hunched over, big old belly. He's like, gummy bears don't even look like that. And I was like, great.
It's for people that are listening. It's on his left wrist.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Because that's usually the place where you go to a club, they'll stamp you.
Yeah. So I was like, man, I got self-conscious about it. So when I moved to Sacramento, I found another tattoo artist. I should have never done this.
No.
Found another tattoo artist, and I was like, hey, I need a cover up. And I was like, I can't cover it up with something different. I need the same tattoo. I just need it to look like a gummy bear.
Mm-hmm.
So she looked at it and she laughed because it just looked like a fat, hunched over gummy bear. And she's like, yeah, I'll tattoo it. I just have to make it bigger in order to hide the other one. I was like, whatever, fine.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah.
She's like, I don't have the same colors, so it might be a little bit different.
Oh boy.
I was like, well, get it as close as possible, and if you need to, go over it to saturate it to make it like as close as possible. So she's like, that's fine. So she did that, and it looked good. So it almost looked like his, and mine looked more like a gummy bear than his did. But now that color that she used is fading.
Oh.
And the original is showing.
Oh, no.
So the gummy bear right now has 3 boobs and a dick. Yeah. So that tattoo doesn't get seen very much anymore, just due to the fact that the old gummy bear is showing through the cover up. So if you can imagine how the gummy bears sit, basically ripping off a gummy bear's arm and sticking in the middle of a current gummy bear and then sticking a leg in between. That's what it looks like. It looks like I have 3 boobs on one gummy bear and a dick. So I'm like, great. Now I have a 3-boobed tranny gummy bear on my wrist.
It's especially with, Chloe, like you said, she's Quaker, a little more conservative. That's got to be fun to try to hide when seeing her folks early on in the relationship.
So going back to that, when I first met her parents, she didn't tell them that I had tattoos and that I was in the military.
Ooh.
So I met them at church. The very first time I met them, she's like, you should come to church with us. They'll like you because you're going to church. I was like, all right, whatever, I'll go. I take off my jacket because it's warm inside the church.
Mm-hmm.
And her mom's face, it's priceless. Her jaw dropped and was like that face of disappointment towards Chloe bringing home a tattooed guy when nobody in the family had tattoos.
Yeah.
So it was like, so I had some explaining to do, but I always wear a watch, so you can't. I guess you can kind of see the tattoo, but it's I can hide most of my tattoos the way I planned them out. If I wanted to wear long sleeves, you can't see them. They don't go past the collar, don't go past the sleeve, so I can hide them.
Yeah.
But I chose not to hide them that day, and it kind of came back to bite me in the butt, but whatever. Still there.
Just when you wear a tank top and it's hot outside, then everything's out there.
Yep.
There it is. So, yeah, you are also a dog father. Yep. There was one dog you had back when, I think, while you were in San Diego, Spike. I remember when Spike passed, you then also got a tattoo.
Yeah.
Spike on
top of my foot.
Top of your foot. What would you say is the tattoo with the most meaning? Would it be that one, or would it be someone else that I didn't address, or which story of your tattoos is your favorite, basically?
I think Spike tattoo has the most sentiment behind it. Just because we had him for 13 years, and then when he passed, they did a nose print. So when your dog passes before, if you choose to bury him, they give you the dog, and then they give you a frozen dog. You put him in the ground, whatever. Or my sister chose to cremate him, so they did a nose pad, or they inked his nose and then put on like a 3x5. And then they did his front 2 paws on the same 3x5. So I took the 3x5, took it to a shop in Newburgh where Chloe was going to school. And I was like, I want this in a spot only for me. The guy's face was kind of like, okay, what do you... I was like, my dog passed. People don't need to see it. This is more for me.
Gotcha.
I want in a private spot where if I want to show it, I can. If I don't want to, whatever.
Yeah.
He's like, well, what about the back of your leg? I was like, I already have one there. And I don't want to have to give people the life story on that one.
Sure.
If I'm wearing shorts.
Yeah.
He's like, what about your ribs? I was like, I have plans for my ribs. I was like, and I don't want to put it on my ass because it doesn't feel like the right spot to put it. Because who's going to go show their ass and be like, oh, check out this tattoo. So he goes, the only other option is the top of your foot. It's going to be painful as hell. but then you're also putting that paint into that tattoo, so then you're putting more equity into it. So it's a good spot to do it if you want to. And I was like, all right, let's do the top of my foot.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he photocopied the nose print and did it exactly to the T. So it's not characterized. It's not like, it's literally the exact print that they got from his nose and his paws with the extra fur that came with it. Mm-hmm. It looks identical. Like you can take the 3x5 and put it next to it and it would look the same.
Wow.
So I think that's my most meaningful tattoo.
Yeah.
I just got some random ones because I was bored and I wanted a tattoo.
Did you and Lena get the same one? Or I think I remember vaguely she got something also.
She went and got one, but hers is about the size of this microphone like cover on her ribs. And I was like, the dog was a freaking Lhasa Apso toy poodle. Like, why the fuck is the pad that big? I was like, we didn't have a massive dog. It's not big.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, my whole tattoo is maybe half of the circumference of this. And I guess for her, it was her thing, but I wanted to keep it as true as possible.
True. And that's good because, like, also a little I mean, I'm sure you saw the artist's artwork or art drawing skills before he put ink to skin.
No.
God,
no.
Never mind. Because I heard, like, you want to try and keep with the same tattoo artist.
So,
but it sounds like you kind of went all over the place.
Yeah, I've gotten tattooed all over the country. Mm-hmm. Any state I've been in. If I had the money and I had the time, I did it. But no, like you said, most people stick with the same tattoo artist. My sleeve that I have on my right arm, I started that when I was 18, and I'm still working on it, and it's the same artist. I've put like a 10-year period in between. But went back to him, and I said, all right, let's finish it up. And I still need to go back to finish it up, but that's a different story.
Yeah.
But most people, like you said, stick with the same artist. Okay. For me, I was in Newburgh. Spike had just passed, and I just wanted to do it for myself, kind of going back to that, putting it in a box and putting it on the shelf.
Sure.
That was my way of putting it in a box, putting it on a shelf, just getting it done, tattooing myself, and just moving on.
Yeah. I got a free one, like a handful of years ago. Like the girlfriend coming out of college, which is the root cause to a lot of turmoil in my last 5 years of my life. So I went with her because she has a lot of tattoos. So I went with her. Her family's in Eugene. So I went with her for Thanksgiving, and then she was getting her touched up. And the tattoo artist looked at me. He's like, "You got anything?" And I was like, "Blank slate." And after she got her stuff done, I was like, you know what? Okay, sure, let's do it. So he was like, what do you want? So it's like, oh, I'm Filipino. So I did like the Filipino sun. You've seen it, but
yeah.
like the Filipino sun. And then I was like, okay, I love being in good health, like whether it's like fitness now with mental health and emotional health and whatnot. So I was like, what if I did like, in the, you say you're from the United States, you're, what is it? You're English. If, the root, the pronoun for someone that's from another place. So I am Filipino. So then it is, I'm from the Philippines. So that would be Filipino. There we go. That was a long, sorry guys. So I got Pinoy Strong because that's the name for someone from the Philippines. And then I was like, okay, it feels great. I'm getting something that's connected to my roots also. And it's part of something that I'm passionate about, like strength. And then I remember her showing my mom. She was like, "You ruined the perfect skin I gave you." I was like, "Sorry, Mom." Brother and Dad were like, "That's stupid." So, but I was like, it's still, even though like I got it when I was attached to someone else at the time, it's like, it still has like, it's granted, yes, my only one, but it's also like, it's nice. It's like, it's cool. I like it. It's attached to my heritage. With you, Guatemala, have you thought of anything you wanted to put on your body, or just something you're doing now that you're trying to connect with your heritage or something you did in the past? Because, yeah, again, the times we've hung out, we don't really, we haven't really talked about this. Where we may talk about like WWE or
Sports or just
sports,
anything.
comic books, which is like, with this camera angle, you can see some comic book covers. But yeah, like your roots and your culture, try to stay connected to your Guatemalan heritage. How are you doing with that?
So with that one, every time I haven't been to Guatemala, my mom goes every few years.
Mm-hmm.
So every time she comes back, she brings me a mask, one of the Mayan gods.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, you know what? It's time to kind of honor my mom and that side of my family. So I took a picture of one of the masks, excuse me, that she brought me back. That has been one of my favorite ones, and took it to somebody. And I was like, hey, I want this tattooed on my arm.
Mm.
So on my left arm, I have, I guess, a half sleeve, because it goes from my shoulder to about almost all the way down my bicep, of the Mayan mask. So that's kind of the route that I've taken to connect with my roots. Eventually, I'll make my way down south.
It's kind of hard with COVID right now.
That and the political turmoil that's going on down there. It's not the greatest time to be there. But I have thought about doing like a full sleeve devoted to that side of my family, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I got a half sleeve.
I did it. Go.
It's there. Whatever.
Yeah, it's something that it's a good talking point, and that's what I think tattoos are for. It's like a lot of good stories can come out of the cause, like the gummy bear and my indecisiveness at first, but then it's like screw it, why not?
Yeah.
I was harnessing my young Rolando Rado. So yeah, well, we talked about the comic book world, which you can see like there are some representations here, but so with my research process, I did deep dive on your Instagram. First off, I saw photos from you still in the military. Yeah, even if you see photos from me like 10 or so years ago, I'm like, wow, I have grown a little bit. I've grown. But you did this pretty cool art piece. I think it was a duct tape. It was like a Venom helmet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what was the thought behind that? And people that don't know who Venom is, Google it. There, you'll figure it out. But, but yeah. So, where did you get the idea to make a Venom? Was it a bike helmet or just regular helmet?
It was, God, this was like what, 6 years ago. I needed a last minute. Oh, not even that long ago, because it was while I was at Bowtie.
Mm-hmm.
So it was probably like 4 years ago. I needed a Halloween costume, and I've always been super envious of the people that cosplay that can make costumes from scratch.
Yeah, they can get pretty good.
Yeah, so really I was good. Like, all right, let's try my hand at this.
Yeah.
So I YouTube how to make a Venom mask. Found a wide variety of them, and I was like, man, all of this is super hard. I'm gonna start simple. So I found a guy that was making them out of cardboard. I was like, tits, that's my speed. Let's do some cardboard, and glue sticks, and some tape. So I found a big piece of cardboard, went out and bought some like black duct tape, and couldn't find any thick glue sticks. So I ended up buying some like Nerf darts. I was like, whatever, I'll make the teeth out of that. So basically made the shell for the helmet out of I think it was a cereal box, and just started adding layers and layers of tape. And the first few layers I had to make perfect, so I had them all nice and smooth. And I was like, okay, cool, it's starting to take shape, looks good. And I was like, well, what am I going to do? Because on the videos that I was watching, the guy was using the hot glue to make like the symbiote strands across it, and then he was painting it black. I was like, I don't want to do all that. I'm lazy. This is my first time. I just want to be done with it.
The hot glue for the hot glue gun. I mean, Okay, I can't excuse you from that. That's pretty cheap. It's just the glue gun's the expensive part if you don't have that.
I had it. I was just being lazy. I didn't want to sit there and figure out how to do the strand. So I was like, you know what? I've got black tape that I'm already using. I have 2 extra rolls left over.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I'll just crinkle it up as I'm taping it down to kind of make the strands. And it actually turned out looking a lot better than I expected. So I was like, all right, we'll run with it. And then ended up cutting the Nerf darts in half and then just made them pointy at the end to make them look like teeth.
Yeah.
And just glued those down, painted them white, and then said, hey, I actually built something that kind of looks like what the video did. So I'm like, all right, cool, let's do it. So I had a tank top with like the Venom symbiote. So I just wore a black sweater underneath it, put that on, and put the helmet on. And
There you go.
Wore that as my Halloween costume at work when I was working at Bowtie. And I was like, yeah, everybody's like, oh, that's so cool. And everybody wanted pictures with it. I didn't think it was that cool. I was like, it kind of looks like ass, but people thought it was cool. So I kept it for a while until Rogue decided to chew it up and then just threw it away.
I remember, I think it was, so my partner is best friends with Chloe. She reminded me that Spider-Man is your superhero choice.
Yeah.
Why do you like Spider-Man?
Well, Spider-Man has dropped to number 2.
Also, Venom is the main bad guy for Spider-Man, so there was a connection there, folks.
Yeah. So Spider-Man has dropped to number 2.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Spider-Man, Far From Home, or No Way Home.
Yeah.
No Way Home. Yeah.
So Spider-Man has always been my favorite character, with superhuman abilities, and then Batman has been my all-time favorite. He's just a normal dude that goes around kicking ass, taking names, and did not
people
care.
in hospitals.
Yep. So, the reason I like Spider-Man so much was nerdy guy, wasn't the strongest, but used his intelligence and his wit to build who he was. By all means, and no stretch, am I nerdy? Am I like, well, nerdy in a certain way, but not in the way that the characters built out. I love science. Peter Parker was a big science whiz. But to the point of where this guy's like a super genius, I'm like down in the dumps, like barely scraping by. So it was
making coffee out of a trailer for a while.
Yeah. But I don't know. That's probably why. And I just took a liking to Spider-Man just due to the fact that his comic books are worth a stupid amount of money. So I was like, all right, let's like Spider-Man.
So Rolando, as we kind of wrap this up, first off, how are you? Like, you seem to have found a comfortability with a microphone and headset, hearing your own voice. Was that weird at all for you? Because you can kind of hear yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was it weird hearing your own voice?
Not really. This isn't the first interview I've done before.
Son of a bitch.
You have to go back into the archives, back to the days when you were still in elementary school and we were in middle school. Wow. When we did that project with Dominique, and it was our Civil War movie.
Oh yeah,
that we did.
I remember. I talked to him about that too when I interviewed him.
That Civil War movie that we did outside the park.
Oh yeah.
That was the first time that we did a movie together and kind of got interviewed, but that interview really never made the class cut that got shown as the project. And the more we did movies with Dominique, I couldn't remember lines to save my life, and I still can't remember lines to save my life. So I was always the extra, the guy that you always saw in the background dying or going, "Ooh," and then dying. And at that time, in high school when we were doing these, Dominique wanted to like do an interview for post-credit stuff and just like extras. And that's kind of where the comfortability came with like a microphone and being in front of a camera. It's just it's me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't care if you don't like me. Cool. If you like me, whatever. No skin off my back. So
When I interviewed Dominique, I did mention that documentary, working on that, and how I remember I had. So I am allergic to grass, which is very weird, but it's
most people are.
they just don't know. But yeah, so like if grass touched my skin, then let's say I think I started just getting hives and itch.
Yeah.
So I just remember we were working on that movie, and this, yeah, the back end of a park, and there's a lot of tall grass, and this was, well, if you go by this park now, it's all like very nice homes, but yeah, I just remember like having to like go home because like I was itching, I was having a hard time breathing, but when I brought that up, yeah, he mentioned that, and then also he talked about the line, "You broke my noodle." You were like, it was from when he was filming like Kung Fu Hustle. That movie back in early 2000s, like he wanted to do some sort of spoof martial arts films, and I was just like, oh god, that was fun, that's hilarious.
Yeah, that was fun to do, and it was just one of those, just being comfortable in my own skin.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I have been comfortable in my own skin for some time. For the longest I've been comfortable, but it's one of those, it's like I like to have fun. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could come across as a hard ass and just not care, but I like to have fun. And it just goes back to you know, the fun that we've had growing up and just kind of the stupid stuff we did.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when we were growing up, and like, since I'm older than you, Jackass was the big thing.
Yes, and now the Jackass Forever is, I think it's come out at the time of this recording. I think it's either out or it's going to be out soon.
The big thing was me. Everybody said I looked like Steve-O.
What?
Yeah. And if you go back and if you were to put my interview that I did with Dominique for that movie that was the Colombian drug lord, and Cheated was the name of the movie that we made. Mm-hmm. If you go back and if you were to put my interview next to like a Steve-O interview at the time, my mannerisms were so much like him, and like my movement. And it wasn't something that I was trying to do on purpose. I think it was just kind of me just being weird, and the way I moved and like talked. People are like, you look and talk like Steve. I'm like, how?
He's a white dude, and you're, I mean, granted,
yeah, kind of whitish now because I'm not seeing the sun, but I was like, how do I look like somebody that's cracked out?
Yeah.
This was when he was on all sorts of drugs, but I was like, man, all right. And I recently found the DVD that he made for everybody, and I showed Chloe.
Really?
And we watched it, and I was like, man, I looked a lot like Steve-O. I was like, okay, I see it now.
Yeah. Okay, guys, you might have had a point there. Damn it. Yeah, it seems like you're getting more vocal about your comfortability, and then you're softening up. So there was one thing I found that was very much a surprise to me when it came to the research process, was that you are still a peer mentor with the Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors, which, when I saw the description, it just meant that anyone that lost someone, well, let's say you lost a loved one during military activity, you would talk to them and you'd kind of help them through that grieving process.
Yeah.
How'd you get involved with that? And also, exactly, like, how do you get yourself prepared to have those kind of conversations?
For that one, it was kind of something that they needed military personnel there. Mm-hmm. And the unit had brought it up. They're like, hey, we need people to head into like downtown San Diego, because the base was like a half hour from San Diego. So they're like, we need people to head into San Diego for TAPS. And I was like, what the hell is TAPS? Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, it's for people who, from any age, basically from like a young kid all the way to adult, where they've lost a spouse, a brother, a sister, a mom or a dad, just something. And they're like, we need 2 people to go for a weekend, and basically hang out with teenagers and have them talk to you about their grieving process, and just kind of just be a shoulder to cry on. I was like, sure, why not? Let's do it.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I did it. I went. I was 19 or 20 at the time, so the age gap between the high schoolers that were going through I ended up with the older group of high schoolers, so it was ages like 16 to 18. So the comfortability there between them and myself at the time was I was only 2 or 3 years older than them, so
Easier to talk to them.
yeah, and just being able to connect was a little bit easier. So it was just different activities, different programs. Had to go through like a weekend training course of what to say, what not to say, and just kind of how to interact with them.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the greatest reward being able to do that, because I got to meet people who had just, like the most recent one, if I remember correctly, the person had just passed away within like a week or two of them going to the program. So it was still super fresh. And they were in like elementary school when their brother or sister or something passed. So they had a few years. So it gave me a better understanding of kind of what the families go through outside of what I did. So it was a nice way to peek into that world and be able to take that experience and then use it in the future. Just if I wanted to use it as a grieving counselor, if I ever wanted to go that route, I already kind of had that experience. But I ended up using some of it teaching with Chloe in an after-school program, and just being able to connect to that younger group and just being able to be like, okay, let's break it down to the point where you can explain it, I can understand it, and I could figure out a way for you to move on and help you move on from that.
Yeah. I think that's also because I've had those moments where it's like I'm feeling some things, I'm thoughtful, I'm thinking of some things, but it's like I don't know what to do to like put it into words, and then I would just be more silent than anything. And then I've noticed, my partner, sometimes she can get a little flustered when trying to get a thought process too. She has a lot I don't knows, but when it comes to trying to kind of, I don't want to say like pull it out of them, but just like help them. Is there a learning, like when you had a lot of, let's say, you made an attempt to try to get like something out of them, and then it just kind of made them crumble a bit more, and maybe like a learning point, like something like that. Like how did you recover from those kind of moments?
In those moments, like where you were just talking to them and you would hit a soft spot, it was getting to them. My goal was for them to hit that soft spot.
Okay.
I wanted to find that.
Okay.
Because the surface level stuff, anybody could have helped them with the surface level stuff.
True.
Granted, I'm not some psychologist or anything like that. So I wanted to hit that soft spot so then they can go through those emotions, because a lot of them, they were still in high school. They didn't know how to handle it. And at that time, I had one person that was in my unit that had committed suicide at that time because he didn't know how to handle his emotions. And so when I was there, I was like, all right, I don't want to see this happen from something that somebody did. Because on one of them that I remember specifically, her brother had committed suicide from PTSD. And it hit her hard because they were super close.
Yeah.
So I wanted to find that soft spot where she broke down those walls and let me in to like hear her story and hear the fun that she had, because she didn't really talk about her brother. But once I got her to start talking about her brother and the fun that they had, and having her remember those fun times, her face went from sadness to joy because she had those happy memories. I was like, okay, I want you to live in this space. Don't remember the tragedy of your brother committing suicide. remember it, honor it, but don't live in that point. Live in these memories of just joy and bliss. And after that, I stayed in touch with a few of them that were like 17, 18, and they would randomly email me and say, "Hey, thanks for being there and being a shoulder to lean on." And I still recently I found the picture because we took a big group picture and all of them had signed it. So I was like, "Oh man." I was like, "I haven't seen this in a long time."
You got to frame that.
Eventually I will. It's in all my military stuff that's in storage, but
Yeah.
once I get a spot to do it, I'll probably frame it up.
So yeah, the last thing I want to ask you is, what's something you, if you could, say to your younger self that could help yourself process through the fact that you did grow up with a single parent and you did have to find other avenues to have a father figure or a older brother figure, because you were the older brother, but at that time before Lena came to the world. So what is something that you would say to yourself to make sure that it's going to be okay, even though you don't have a dad in the picture?
I would go back and tell my younger self it's worth it. Go through the emotions, go through it, but just don't close yourself off. Because a lot of that has helped. Just learning and growing up at a young age, being like a third grader and my mom having to go to work and having to learn how to cook and feed myself, feed my sister. Just that stuff was worth it. I found a passion and a joy that I love in cooking. I found responsibility, and I think that helped me as I was growing up, because most kids don't have a lot of responsibility. So if you look at them compared to somebody who grew up in a single home, the responsibility level is different. So one, they're always partying and always having fun. And on the other side, you have the people that are working, making an income, and then getting ahead in life. And the people that grew up with two parents in the home, they have more freedoms and they get to enjoy their childhood, which I kind of wish I got to do, and have that party phase and not have to worry about what I was going to do if my mom didn't have enough money, how I was going to get money for sports, how I was going to get scholarships. But it made me work harder. It made me strive and pull ahead of my peers.
Yeah. Great. I mean, it's never fun to face that kind of, I would say advertisement, but adversity. There you go. But yeah, definitely, because my parents split. So it wasn't, my brother was already off in college and I was at home, and I still had, I think, 2 years left of school. So it wasn't great. It wasn't the greatest time, but it did help me become more independent and whatnot. So I lied. Actually, there's one more thing. So Rado, if you have seen any of my episodes, or if not, that's totally cool. I mean, my brother really does. I do ask 2 hypothetical questions at the out of this packet of 170.
Okay.
So if you could know the internet history of any one individual, who would it be?
Ooh. That's a tough one. Internet history of anybody. From how big of a window?
It could
like their
be
entire search history from when like internet first started, if they were old enough to be at the beginning of that? Or is it like a day snippet to see kind of what they're doing?
Let's say you can have 6 months of their internet browser history.
Ooh, that's dangerous.
I thought you enjoyed that one.
I would say either you or your brother.
Damn it. That one came back onto me.
Yep.
I thought you could be like, oh, I don't know. Was it Elon Musk or something like that? Or
I feel like those people don't have the time to be Google searching for stuff.
Okay. Oh, there's a good one. If you could implant one false memory in the minds of everyone in your country, like basically if you could rewrite history, what memory would you input, or what memory would you kind of rewrite?
I would say this is the warmonger side of me coming out.
Okay.
I would say I would implement that I was the imperial ruler of the country.
Okay. Yeah.
And I would just say, hey, everybody,
Don't mess with me.
I rule you. I am your king. I am your ruler.
As the great and intimidating head of the table, Roman Reigns would say, acknowledge me.
Yeah. I feel like that would be a fun one.
Yeah.
I feel like it'd be fun for a while and just be like, hey, listen, I'm going to rule you with an iron fist, but I'm going to love you at the same time. But I think I'd be bored after a while.
A little bit.
I was just kind of putting out people's like fires.
Yeah. They'll think like, hey, you're the ruler. Can you help me relieve my student debt?
Yeah.
I'm like,
all right, no, you go work. You go do it.
You're good. You're good. Rolando, where can the people find you on social media? I know you're not super active, but at least get you some followers. I'll be happy with
that. Social media, on the gram, basically. Yeah. I don't ever post. If I post, it is completely random. I post maybe once or twice a year. Mm-hmm. Sometimes not at all.
You're perusing. You're just checking out stuff.
Sometimes I just kind of use it to keep tabs of friends and see how things are going. It's a good way to see some people that I haven't talked to in years, but just kind of in the background. If I see anything that interests me, be like, hey, sorry you lost your dog, or congratulations on getting engaged, or congratulations on a baby. Mm-hmm. It's fun just seeing kind of the friends from high school or acquaintances from high school and seeing how they're doing. And then it's fun to see that in a way of, I'm doing better than they are, just because that's me. Or, oh, shit, they're way ahead and I need to hurry the fuck up and get there. Mm-hmm. But most of the time I'm a huge car guy, so I'll follow muscle cars, some crazy builds, or like the Food Network, just to get like recipes to try. Yeah,
that makes sense. Rolando Rado, you did it. You got a podcast officially to your name. How are you feeling?
Yes.
A lot of the time people are like, yes, are we done now? I gotta use a bathroom.
I know.
No. I saw your legs are shaking a little bit. So.
Oh no, it's just from like having my leg crossed, but no, it's cool. I made sure to eat breakfast, made sure to go to the bathroom, took a shower before I got here.
Feel clean.
Good.
Before you got all that out.
Yeah, good headspace.
There you go.
And that's what it is just coming into it with a good headspace.
Yeah. You seem like you're in the best headspace right now, which makes me very happy to see you. And again, congratulations officially to put on the docket. Congratulations on the engagement. If this episode has aired and then you guys have already typed and not did all that, happy belated then. Giant thank you to the guests for coming on and telling their story. And thank you to you, the listener or watcher that made it to the end of the episode. And if you like what you heard or watched and would like more episodes from Keoni Chats, the show can be found on all podcast platforms and YouTube. If you'd like to stay in the loop in terms of episode releases, again, check us out on KC Media 13 on both Instagram and Twitter, and then Conluke Media on Facebook. If you'd like to be a guest, I'd love to hear your story. Email me at kcmedia13@yahoo.com. And until the next time, everyone, please take care.